Welcome. This video presentation was prepared as part of the e-scooter public consultation that is taking place from March 7th, 2022 until noon April 11th, 2022. This consultation has been directed by Council and is being undertaken by City of Oshawa staff. The purpose of this video presentation is to provide the public with an opportunity to provide input and feedback for consideration in deciding if the operation of e-scooters should be permitted in the City of Oshawa as part of the province's 5-year e-scooter pilot program. With this purpose, this presentation is divided into the following 4 sections, and they will present: in Section 1, an overview of the background information and context; in Section 2, the Provincial e-scooter pilot program and its requirements; in Section 3, the highlights and concerns with e-scooter pilot programs; and in Section 4, information regarding the form in which public input and feedback can be provided will be presented. Section 1, background information. At a joint Development Services and Community Services Committee meeting held on January 2022, the committee considered Report DS 2222 and received a presentation from Bird Canada on their expression of interest to provide shared micromobility services within Oshawa. On January 24, 2022, Council directed staff to consult with the public, Oshawa Accessibility Advisory Committee, Oshawa Environmental Advisory Committee, and Oshawa Active Transportation Advisory Committee in order to receive input on whether the use of e-scooters should be permitted in the City of Oshawa under the province's 5-year e-scooter pilot program. Following the completion of the consultation, staff will report back to the Joint Committee on the results. Additional details on how feedback can be provided is presented later on in the presentation. In 2015, City Council approved the Integrated Transportation Master Plan, which identified that over 70% of trips that begin or end in Oshawa are single-occupant auto trips. Of these trips, approximately 59% are of lengths that are well suited for active transportation. Over time, as population increase and fuel prices soar, micromobility could possibly become one solution to increasing road congestion challenges and environmental problems. Micromobility refers to a range of small, lightweight vehicles operating at speeds typically below 25 kilometers an hour and driven by users personally. Micromobility devices include bicycles, e-bikes, electric scooters, electric skateboards, and shared bicycles, e-bikes, and e-scooters. Section 2, Provincial e-scooter pilot program and its requirements. In November 2019, the province of Ontario announced a 5-year e-scooter pilot program. The pilot started January 1st, 2020 and will run until January 2025. The intent of the provincial pilot program is to support micromobility options and to evaluate the use of both personal and shared e-scooters to determine whether the provincial rules of the road are adequate. This includes requiring municipalities to opt into the pilot program by establishing bylaws to govern where and how e-scooters can be used. Municipalities currently piloting e-scooters include City of Windsor, City of Ottawa, and City of Mississauga, while City of London and City of Waterloo, among other municipalities, are reviewing the option. Some municipalities like City of Toronto have chosen not to participate in the pilot, waiting instead for the outcome of the provincial pilot program. Once a municipality opts into the province's pilot program, they are required to monitor the pilot and provide data back to the province. The data will then be taken into consideration at the end of the pilot program in 2025. E-scooters are clearly defined in provincial regulations. They are operated by a battery-powered motor and have a platform for the rider's feet to stand on. Riders use the waist-high handlebars to steer. E-scooters can be privately owned or used as part of a commercially operated e-scooter share program. These e-scooter share programs are becoming more popular in many North American cities and around the world. An e-scooter share program is a service fully funded and operated by commercially operated businesses in which e-scooters are made available to use for short-term rentals. E-scooters are generally rented and paid for through a mobile app. Some system operators have provisions for those without mobile data access. E-scooter operators are responsible for setting their own prices. The cost to ride is typically a flat fee plus a variable fee based on the time the e-scooter is in use. If approved by municipalities, these vendors would enter into an agreement to operate on public property such as roads, trails, and multi-use paths. These agreements would stipulate operating requirements that vendors must adhere to, including when, where, and how they can operate, This could include the requirement for highly visible identification numbers on each device to make reporting infractions easier, and utilizing technology such as geofencing to limit speed, introduce parking restrictions, and establishing no ride zones in certain areas, making enforcement and control somewhat easier than that of privately owned e-scooters. Agreements can also set out compliance requirements and response times, ensuring that vendors respond to pedestrian obstructions and safety concerns within a set period of time. As mentioned, the province passes regulations under the Highway Traffic Act that sets out clear requirements for what is considered an e-scooter. To meet the requirements of the Ontario Ministry of Transportation, e-scooters must be electric with a maximum power output of 500 watts, have a horn or bell, have a front and back light, have two wheels and brakes, and must be parked in areas approved by municipal bylaws. Additionally, e-scooters must not have pedals or a seat and must not travel faster than 24 kilometers an hour and cannot weigh more than 45 kilograms. For the purpose of the pilot, provincial regulations also establish rules that apply to riders when operating an e-scooter. These requirements include limiting the age of riders to 16 years or older and requiring riders under 18 to wear a helmet. Additionally, when operating an e-scooter, riders must stand at all times, must not have passengers, carry cargo, or be operated for commercial use. Provincial requirements may carry similar offenses as would apply to bicycles under the Highway Traffic Act. When operating on the road, the police are responsible for enforcing the rules of the road, which would also apply to operating e-scooters. Violations range in severity. However, similar to other vehicles, there are serious consequences for operating an e-scooter while impaired, and additional criminal code charges may apply. Section 3. Highlights and concerns of e-scooter pilot programs. As other municipalities have undertaken similar e-scooter pilot programs such as the City of Calgary and the City of Ottawa, some highlights of their pilot program will be provided. As part of the City of Calgary's pilot, Calgary staff reported that 1.9 million trips and over 200,000 unique users were recorded during the 2-year shared e-bike and e-scooter pilot program that ran from October 2018 to October 2020. 1 in 3 e-scooter trips replaced a trip by automobile, and greater than 50% of trips by e-scooter ended in a business improvement area or business revitalization zone. As part of the City of Ottawa pilot, surveys revealed that 27% of respondents indicated that they chose to use an e-scooter to reduce emissions, 46% reported driving less, and 33% reported traveling less as a car passenger. The trip data collected as part of the pilot revealed that 48% of e-scooters trips started in, while 45% ended in a business improvement area, bringing residents to local businesses and supporting Ottawa's economic recovery during the COVID-19 pandemic. Of the 34% of e-scooter riders who visited a local business and the 33% who visited a local restaurant, 6% reported spending more than $100 on a typical visit, 18% spent between $51 and $100, 36% spent between $21 and $50. The primary concern for municipalities who have opted for an e-scooter pilot program is the presence of scooter litter, where e-scooters are left all over the place and block pedestrian pathways. E-scooter share vendors have tried to mitigate this trend by forcing riders to park their e-scooter upright and in a manner that does not obstruct pedestrian pathways or roadways. Issues with accessibility is another concern. Accessibility advocates have been concerned that e-scooters can block sidewalks and compromise mobility for those living with disabilities or accessibility issues. The fact that e-scooters are silent or don't make much noise could pose a safety issue, as pedestrians may not hear them approaching from the back or front, especially for visually impaired. The lack of enforcement is another concern. Most municipalities don't have the resources to provide the level of enforcement needed to patrol sidewalks and trails to catch offenders. Section 4. Public feedback. As part of the consultation, we would like to know from our residents, should e-scooters be allowed to operate in Oshawa? If they are allowed, where and how should they be allowed to ensure safety for all? Should they be allowed in parks, on trails, on multi-use paths, or on streets with a posted speed of 50 kilometers an hour or lower? Also note that staff support the provincial guidance that e-scooters should not be allowed to operate on sidewalks. Other questions relate to parking parameters for e-scooters, speed limits, minimum age to operate, and private ownership versus commercially operated. In order to answer these and other questions, a feedback form is available to be completed online on Connect Oshawa. The feedback and input received will help the city to determine if e-scooters should be permitted in the City of Oshawa, where they should be allowed to be ridden, and whether e-scooter rental companies should be allowed to operate in the city. It is requested that the public review the information available on Connect Oshawa and complete the feedback form. Feedback will be accepted until noon Monday, April 11th, 2022. Residents can also choose to attend a public information session and e-scooter demonstration where staff and e-scooter vendors will be available to answer questions. The public information session is scheduled for Tuesday, April 5th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Donevan Recreation Complex. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, residents are required to register for the public information session by contacting Service Oshawa. Thank you.